At first, everyone thought it was gigantic because it was way too bright for how far away it was. Brightness usually means size, and they guessed it might be about 20 kilometers wide. When I heard that, my jaw dropped because that's insanely huge. That's the kind of huge that could destroy a whole planet if it hit one. But then the pictures from telescopes got better, and suddenly the size estimate changed completely. Hubble narrowed it down to somewhere between 440 meters and about 5 or 6 kilometers. That's a massive range, and no one could agree which number was correct. It was like trying to measure a coin while standing across an entire football field. Then a study from the University of Canterbury came out, and that changed everything again. They didn't just look at pictures, they looked at how the comet moved. They studied its non-gravitational acceleration, which is a fancy way of saying the gas shooting out of it was pushing it like tiny thrusters. From that, they calculated how massive it had to be, and that led to a shocking result. The nucleus wasn't 10 kilometers, it wasn't 5, it wasn't even 2. It was probably between 820 and 150 meters wide, barely a speck compared to other huge comets, less than a mile across. But somehow this tiny thing was producing a tail and a glowing cloud as huge as comets, 20 times its size. That didn't make sense. If it were a normal comet, it should have been falling apart. All that gas blasting out of it should have ripped it into pieces. But 3 Atlas stayed strong, stayed active, stayed weird. This is when Professor Avi Loeb from Harvard stepped in with an idea that sounded like science fiction. He said maybe we weren't actually seeing the nucleus at all. Maybe the real core of this object was hidden behind something. He focused on the anti-tail, a strange spike of dust pointing toward the sun instead of away from it. Normal comets don't have sun-pointing tails unless it's an illusion caused by Earth crossing the comet's orbital plane. NASA at first said it was probably just geometry, but the math didn't fit, and new images proved it wasn't an illusion. It was real. A real spike, a real jet, a real structure. Loeb then measured the dust grains, and that made everything even stranger. Typical space dust is tiny, smaller than a micron, but this dust was 10 microns, 10 times bigger. And 10 micron dust is incredibly good at scattering sunlight. It creates a kind of glowing curtain, a veil, a perfect shield. Loeb calculated the density of the dust cloud and discovered something almost unbelievable. The optical depth, basically how much the dust blocks the view, was almost exactly 1. That means it was just thick enough to hide the core, but thin enough to let light spread through, like someone designed it that way, like a camouflage suit for space. If it were natural, the nucleus would have had to be at least 2 kilometers wide. But it wasn't. The nucleus was tiny, too tiny for such a thick veil. So the numbers didn't add up unless something was hiding behind the dust. Some scientists said maybe it was natural. Some said maybe not. And I sat there imagining something inside, wrapped in its dust blanket, quietly watching us as it passed. While all that was happening, something else creepy was going on. The comet's path kept changing. Not because planets pulled it, not because of gravity, but because its own jets were firing in random directions. Usually comets spin and release gas in predictable patterns like a spinning lawn sprinkler, but 3A Atlas was doing something different. It was shooting gas in strange directions, and those directions kept changing. NASA announced that its trajectory was becoming unpredictable. That made me feel weird. Like when a grown-up says everything is fine, but their voice says the opposite. It wasn't coming toward Earth, so we weren't in danger, but the way it was moving felt wrong. It felt like something with a mind steering itself, or at least something acting like it had control. Even the scientists admitted that the outgassing patterns didn't match a normal comet. Some said it was tumbling. Some said it was unstable. Others whispered that it might be maneuvering. That word stuck in my head. Maneuvering. Because rocks don't maneuver. Machines do. Then we learned about the mass loss. 3I Atlas had shed about 10 million kilograms of dust in a month. That sounded enormous, but it was actually less than 1% of its gas loss. That dust-to-gas ratio matches the stuff we see in molecular clouds, the birthplaces of stars. So one explanation was that this object came from a very young solar system, a star nursery, a place full of heavy dust grains. But even that didn't explain why the veil was exactly the perfect thickness, or why the dust grains were exactly the perfect size, or why the jets fired exactly the right way to form an anti-tail. It was all too perfect, like someone made it that way. Then something new and even scarier happened. The light from the comet wasn't steady, it pulsed, like a heartbeat. Some scientists said it might be spinning fast, or tumbling, but others noticed that the jets might be pulsing too. If the jets were pulsed, then it wasn't just venting gas, it was thrusting, pushing, moving itself. A pulsed jet is basically an engine. That idea kept me awake at night because a natural comet wouldn't need engines, but a probe might. Then I thought about the silence. The radio telescopes listened for signals, but there was nothing. No message, no beep, no alien hello. Some people said that proved it was natural, but others said maybe it was silent on purpose. If it were a probe, maybe it wasn't supposed to talk. Maybe it was just watching, or maybe it was broken, or maybe it was waiting to go home. As it moved past Earth and headed toward the outer solar system, its trajectory became a cone of uncertainty instead of a clean line. It wasn't just drifting, it was twitching, adjusting, even a little fighting Jupiter's gravity, almost like it didn't want to be pulled, almost like it had somewhere else to go. A natural comet falls, a machine flies, and 3 Atlas was flying. I'm only in 5th grade, but even I can feel when something doesn't fit. Everything about this object feels like a puzzle where all the pieces are from different boxes. A tiny object acting huge, a veil that hides perfectly, a tail that points the wrong way, jets that pulse, a path that swerves, silence that feels intentional. And now, as it fades, we're left with more mystery than before. Scientists keep saying it might be natural, but deep down, I think everyone is wondering, what if it isn't? What if it really was a visitor, not just a comet, not just a rock, something built, something ancient, something passing by, something watching, and now it's gone, but not forgotten. When I woke up the morning after 3 Atlas had passed its closest point to Earth, I thought the news would finally calm down. I thought maybe scientists would say everything was normal. I thought maybe they would say it was cooling down, fading away, becoming just another harmless visitor, but the exact opposite happened. Every time I checked the headlines, the story got stranger, like the comet was trying to make sure nobody could sleep properly. NASA released an update about its path, and people were freaking out again. They explained that the trajectory was no longer clean or predictable. Instead of a smooth curve, it looked like a shaky line drawn by a kid who didn't want to practice handwriting. The comet wasn't drifting, it wasn't gliding, it was twitching. You know how a bug sometimes jerks around like it can't decide where to go? That's how 3 Atlas was moving. A space object shouldn't move like that. But it did. NASA said the outgassing was causing these changes. The jets shooting out of it were firing at different strengths, different angles, different times. But that explanation didn't really make me feel better, because natural things usually stay natural, predictable, normal. This didn't. Even my science teacher said she had never heard of a comet behaving this weirdly. And she's like the smartest teacher in our school. Another strange thing I noticed was how fast everything kept changing. One week, scientists thought it was a big comet. Then the next week, they said it was small. Then the next, they said it was tiny but acted like a giant. Then they said the dust was too thick. Then they said the dust was perfect. Then they said the tail was pointing the wrong way. It felt like every time someone tried to solve the puzzle changed shape. Almost like 3 Atlas didn't want to be understood. And that thought really messed with my head. One evening, my dad and I sat outside with his old telescope. He said we couldn't see details, but we could still see the fuzzy glow of the comet. So we looked. It didn't look like anything special, just a small blurry dot with a tail. But knowing everything the scientists said, it felt like we were looking at something hiding in plain sight, something wrapped in a blanket of dust whispering past our world. I wondered if it could see us. I wondered if it had cameras or sensors or something more advanced than anything we could imagine. I know that sounds like a wild idea for a 5th grader, but honestly, everything about this object felt wild. Then I remembered something from the reports that scared me even more. Loeb said the dust cloud had an optical depth of exactly 1. Exactly 1. Not a little less. Not a little more. Perfectly 1. In science, that's like getting a score of 100 on a test without even trying. Perfect scores don't happen by accident. Not in nature. And if they do, it's rare. Super rare. But this thing had the perfect score for hiding something, the perfect thickness to cover its surface, the perfect type of dust to scatter sunlight, the perfect shape to look natural but still keep secrets. It felt engineered, like something someone built on purpose. And the more I thought about it, the more I wondered what could be inside that glowing cloud. A rock, ice, a machine, something alive, or something long dead drifting for millions of years. Then there were the light pulses. Scientists said the brightness of the object wasn't steady. It went up and down, like breathing, or like blinking, or like an engine that turns on and off. They tried to explain it with rotation, but the pattern wasn't like other rotating objects. It was too sharp, too regular, too rhythmic. My brain kept imagining a tiny spacecraft sending little bursts of gas to correct its path, like puff, puff, puff. Every time it puffed, the brightness changed. Every time it puffed, its path twitched. Every time it puffed, new dust released from its surface. People on the internet started calling it the heartbeat. That made it even creepier, because things that have heartbeats are alive, or machines pretending to be alive. Late one night, I watched a video explaining how the comet might have been dormant for millions of years. They said maybe it woke up only when it entered our solar system. Maybe the warmth of the sun triggered something inside it. Maybe a system booted up. Maybe a tank opened. Maybe a mechanism activated. That idea made my chest feel tight in a way I can't explain. What if this object wasn't supposed to turn on until it reached a star? What if it was sent to travel in darkness, waiting for sunlight to wake it? Like a seed waiting for water, or a machine waiting for power. I tried to sleep, but all I could picture was a cold, silent object out in deep space, drifting for ages until our sun lit it up again. And when it woke, it began to move, to react, to change course, maybe even to watch. The next morning, the news talked about Jupiter. Some people thought 3 Atlas might have used Jupiter's gravity to speed up. Others thought it tried to avoid Jupiter. The part that scared scientists was that the comet seemed to adjust its movement in ways a normal comet shouldn't. Not gently, not slowly, but in sudden, tiny bursts, like something was nudging it, correcting it, improving its path. Even the small changes were too sharp, too deliberate, too controlled. I read one scientist's comment online. He said, "When a rock moves, it obeys nature. When 3 Atlas moves, it behaves like it has goals." That sentence stuck in my brain like glue. What goals? Why would it need them? What could a comet possibly want? Rocks don't want things, machines can. Then another puzzle piece came in. James Webb studied the gas coming from 3 Atlas. And guess what? It wasn't driven by water at first like most comets. It was driven by carbon dioxide. CO2, that stuff we breathe out. That stuff used in fire extinguishers and also used as fuel in some scientific thruster experiments. Why would a tiny comet have so much CO2? Why would it activate so far from the sun? Why was it so clean and fresh instead of covered in dark crust like old comets? It felt like whatever was under the dust had been protected, hidden, preserved. 3 Atlas wasn't old and crusty. It was clean, shiny, almost new looking, or maybe something inside it kept itself clean. Then came the part that made goosebumps crawl up my arms. Some scientists said the comet's movement suggested it might be fighting the sun's radiation pressure, trying to keep its veil the same shape, trying to keep its orientation steady, trying not to tumble, trying to stay stable. But why? What comet cares about looking neat, or hiding its core, or keeping its dust exactly in place? I stared at the ceiling that night thinking about it, imagining something metallic deep inside that cloud, something ancient, silent, designed, and it felt like the world had just witnessed something important but wasn't brave enough to say it out loud. 3 Atlas wasn't just a visitor, it was a question, a giant question floating through space, and nobody had the answer. I tried to talk to my friends about it at school, but most of them just joked about aliens. They said if aliens came, they'd land in New York or visit the White House first. But I didn't think so. If aliens were smart enough to build something that could travel between stars, they probably wouldn't knock on our door. Smart explorers watch first, they learn, they observe, quietly, carefully, from far away, and 3 Atlas stayed far away. It didn't come toward us. It passed at a safe distance, almost polite, like it didn't want to disturb anything. But the way it moved, the way it acted, and the way it pulsed felt like it wasn't just a rock. Even the silence was strange. If it were a probe, maybe it wasn't supposed to talk to us. Maybe it had a mission we didn't understand. Maybe it was gathering data, or maybe it was broken, or maybe it was waiting, just waiting, and scanning, and drifting. As it faded farther into space, NASA said the path was widening. The cone of uncertainty became bigger. No one could say exactly where it would go. It might head toward deep space. It might circle around in a weird loop, or it might be steering toward a direction no one expected. I tried to imagine where something like that would want to go. Would it return home? Would it go toward another star? Would it follow a path programmed long ago? Or would it continue drifting forever? No one knew, and that mystery made everything feel like a cliffhanger in a story with no last chapter. Every time I think about it, I get this strange feeling in my stomach, like excitement mixed with fear, like curiosity mixed with warning, like the universe trying to whisper something we're not ready to hear. Because 3 Atlas wasn't just weird. It was too weird, too perfect, too controlled, too mysterious. And as it fades into the dark, I can't help wondering if we just watched something ancient pass by us, something not from here. Something older than our entire civilization. Something built with a purpose we might never understand. And now it's gone, leaving us with questions that may take centuries to answer. When 3 Atlas finally started slipping away into the deep, dark parts of the solar system, I thought maybe the world would stop talking about it. But that didn't happen. If anything, the conversations became louder, stranger, more nervous, because instead of answering questions, the new data made everything even more mysterious. And for a kid like me who already had a too big imagination, that was both awesome and terrifying. The first thing I noticed after its departure was how many scientists began arguing on TV. One group said 3 Atlas was a natural comet with unusual behavior. Another group said it was a new type of interstellar object that didn't follow normal rules. And a few brave scientists quietly admitted they didn't know what it was at all. That honesty scared me the most. When grown-ups admit they don't know something, especially about space, it usually means something big is going on, something weird, something nobody has a name for yet. Even my science teacher looked confused when she talked about it. She kept saying, "This object challenges our models," which is teacher language for everything we thought we knew might be wrong. The more I listened to interviews and watched videos, the more I realized something important. 3 Atlas didn't behave like anything humans had ever studied. Not Oumuamua, not Borisov, not any comet or asteroid from our solar system. It was like a mix of everything and nothing at the same time. A cosmic rule breaker, a visitor that showed up, broke all the science laws we trusted, and left without saying a single word. The strangest part was the dust shield theory that Professor Loeb kept talking about. He explained it in a way even I could understand. He said the dust grains were the perfect size for blocking sunlight while still glowing softly. Perfect. Not random, not messy, just perfect. Nature usually leaves fingerprints of chaos. It doesn't make perfect things. But 3A Atlas's dust veil was perfect in size, perfect in thickness, perfect in how it hid the nucleus, perfect in how it scattered light, perfect in how it confused telescopes. All those perfect numbers made me feel like someone had designed it, not like a school project, of course, more like something built by a civilization so old and so advanced that they could use dust as armor, dust as camouflage, dust as a cloak. The idea that dust could hide something powerful made me look at clouds differently for a few days. I kept thinking, what if something is hiding behind those too? But I shook that off quickly because if I didn't, I would never sleep again. Back to 3 Atlas. After it passed us, the new models tried to calculate exactly where it would go next, but they couldn't. Every time someone predicted its path, 3I Atlas did something unexpected. It slowed a little, then it sped up, then it shifted slightly, then it pulsed, then it removed dust, then it added more. It acted like a student tapping a pencil on a desk, unable to stay still. But comets don't have ADHD. Comets don't take detours. Comets don't change their minds. This thing acted like it was making choices. Tiny choices, yes, but choices. NASA tried to calm people down by saying the changes were non-gravitational accelerations caused by outgassing jets. But saying fancy words doesn't magically make confusion disappear, especially when outgassing shouldn't behave like a steering system. I saw a scientist say something online that gave me chills. He wrote, 3A Atlas behaves like a thing that wants to go somewhere. That line stayed stuck in my brain for days. I imagined the object drifting through space, following a path no human could understand. A lonely traveler, a messenger, a relic from a long-vanished world, or maybe something still alive in its own quiet, mechanical way. One thing that freaked everybody out was how the comet reacted near the sun. Instead of burning up or breaking apart like normal small comets do, 3 Atlas got stronger. It became brighter, more active, more alive. Like the sunlight wasn't hurting it, it was powering it, feeding it, charging it. When I heard this, I imagined the object waking up, stretching, activating systems that had been asleep for millions of years, like a robot turning on after a long nap. The idea seemed ridiculous, even to me, but everything else about this thing was ridiculous too. Then the James Webb data about CO2 came in. That was the next strange puzzle piece. Most comets start venting water vapor when they get close to the sun. Not this one. 3 Atlas started with carbon dioxide. CO2 explodes into gas at much lower temperatures. That means the comet was active way out near Jupiter. Why would a natural comet be that active so far away? Scientists tried to explain it by saying maybe the object came from a very cold, faraway planetary system where CO2 was common. And maybe that's true. But the data also said the CO2 wasn't mixed randomly. It seemed to vent from specific spots, almost like nozzles, little vents, controlled openings. Not cracks, not fractures, vents. When I heard that, my imagination exploded like fireworks, because vents sound like engineering, not like nature. And if the jets were firing from specific vents, that could explain why the comet's path kept twitching. It wasn't just outgassing, it was thrusting. Even if it didn't mean to, the pattern looked controlled, almost like a forgotten machine trying to stabilize itself, or follow a map, or avoid something. Then something else happened. A new report said the object was shedding dust way too fast for its size, like crazy fast. It was losing about 10 million kilograms a month. That sounded like a lot, but scientists said it was still a very small fraction of its total mass. The dust-to-gas ratio was similar to regions where stars are born. That made scientists think it might have come from a place full of heavy dust grains, a stellar nursery, a baby solar system. That idea made me picture the object drifting for millions of years, moving between stars like a message in a bottle on an endless ocean. Maybe it left its home when dinosaurs walked the Earth. Maybe it left before Earth even formed. Maybe the civilization that created it, if it was created, was gone by now, turned to dust, forgotten even by the universe. That thought made me feel tiny, smaller than tiny, like an ant thinking about mountains. Then there was the anti-tail. Scientists kept saying tails point away from the sun, but this one didn't. It pointed toward it, toward the light, toward the heat, toward the thing pushing against it. The particles had to be the perfect size for that to happen. 1 micron was too small. 100 microns was too big. But 10 microns? Perfect. Always 10. Always perfect. Why was everything always perfect? Why did every measurement seem like someone had designed it that way? One scientist said, nature rarely draws perfect circles. This object is full of perfect circles. Even the dust density, the optical depth, was perfect. Not too thick, not too thin. Exactly one. Exactly good for hiding something. If it were natural, why would it sit at the exact number needed to hide a surface but still look like a glowing cloud? That's like wearing sunglasses that block exactly the right amount of sunlight. It made no sense. Unless the veil had a purpose, a job, a mission, to protect something, to hide something, to disguise something. The more I thought about it, the more I felt like the universe had whispered a secret and then ran away laughing. Three-Eye Atlas didn't break physics. It bent them, tricked them, played with them, like a magician, or like a machine designed to look natural. Then came the silence. The radio telescopes listened for signals. Green Bank listened. Breakthrough. Listen scanned it for hours. No beeps, no pings, no prime numbers, nothing. People use the silence as proof it was natural, but silence can also be a choice, a strategy, a rule. If you want to observe something without being noticed, you stay quiet. You don't send "Hello Earth" messages. You don't wave, you watch from far away and leave without a trace. The comet kept fading. The dust cloud grew thinner. Its brightness dropped. Its shape became blurrier, and the world kept arguing. Kids on the bus talked about aliens. Grown-ups talked about science. Scientists talked about models and pathways and jets and dust grains. But I just felt something deep inside me. Not fear, not excitement, something else. Something like wonder. Because whatever 3 Atlas was, it reminded me that the universe is full of mysteries way bigger than homework or video games or school rules. It reminded me that we don't know everything, not even close. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe mysteries are what make life exciting. Maybe visitors like this show up to remind us to look up, to ask questions, to imagine more, to believe in possibilities we can't prove yet. And this visitor, whatever it was, definitely did that. Some scientists say it was natural. Some say it was weird but explainable. Some say it might have been artificial. Some say the truth is a mix of everything. But no matter what anyone says, I know one thing for sure. 3 Atlas didn't act like a rock. It didn't act like a comet. It didn't act like something asleep. It acted like something moving with purpose, something built, something ancient, something traveling for reasons we don't understand. As it fades into the black, I keep thinking, what if we weren't the first to see it? What if other civilizations watched it pass by thousands of years ago? What if it's been traveling across the galaxy like a tiny messenger, collecting stories and secrets from star to star? What if we were just one more chapter in its journey? And what if somewhere out there, far away, someone is waiting for it to come home? Maybe it will return someday. Maybe something else will. But one thing I know now is that the universe is bigger, stranger, and more crowded than we ever imagined. 3 Atlas was the 3rd visitor. It won't be the last. And next time, I hope we're ready, because the universe just sent us a message, a silent one, a mysterious one, a message wrapped in dust and light and secrets. And even though I'm only in 5th grade, I could hear that message loud and clear. It said, "We are not alone." As 3 Atlas disappears into the endless dark, I can't help staring at the sky a little longer than before. I keep thinking about everything it showed us, and everything it refused to explain. It came quietly, it left quietly, but it changed something inside all of us. Now I know the universe isn't empty. It isn't quiet. It isn't simple. It's full of secrets waiting to be seen, and visitors we might never fully understand. Maybe 3A Atlas was just a rock. Maybe it was a message. Maybe it was something ancient, still wandering on a journey older than every human alive today. Whatever it was, it reminded me to keep looking up, because someday another visitor will come. And next time, we might finally be ready to listen.